And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Endometriosis Sister Circle. Tonight, we have four beautiful, gorgeous ladies here to share their stories, and we will begin by introducing them to you. And we will be going in the order in which we would want you to answer your questions. So we are starting with Zoe. So Zoe Shim is a counseling and educational psychologist in Jamaica. She teaches full-time at the University of Technology and part-time with the Ministry of Health. She has been teaching and practicing psychology for over 15 years now. Next, we have Shantana. Shantana Hazel is an award-winning health advocate, community research fellow, international speaker, founder of Sister Girl Foundation, Inc., self-published author of A New Me, Mind, Body, Soul, Health and Wellness Journal, and 28 Ways on How to Advocate for Your Healthcare. She has had a long personal battle with rheumatoid arthritis and endometriosis for over 33 years. After enduring 16 surgeries and countless other procedures, she has dedicated her life's work to helping others. Shantana created the Sister Girl Foundation.
Hi.
Good night, good night. She has created the Sister Girl Foundation, a nonprofit organization geared towards providing awareness, education, support, and advocacy to individuals with endometriosis, infertility, and breast and ovarian cancers. Through the foundation, she has been providing advocacy, support groups, educational and financial resources, workshops, and events to help the community to bring the community together and keep them knowledgeable. Next, we have Robin. Miss Robin Fevrier is a Foreign Service Officer who currently holds the post of Second Secretary at the Embassy of St. Lucia in the Republic of China on Taiwan. She previously worked in the International Relations Unit as the International Relations Officer at the OECS Commission. She is a graduate of Tamkang University, Taiwan, having successfully completed a BSc in Global Politics and Economics with a minor in International Tourism Management and an MSc in International Affairs and Strategic Studies. She has a strong interest in world affairs and regional integration, which is evident in her course of study. She is also the founder of Ayanola Womanhood, an organization that seeks to raise awareness and advocate for women suffering from reproductive and menstrual health disorders, primarily endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, as well as fibroids, uterine polyps, and infertility. And last but not least, we have Miss Nika. Nika Anderson Isaacs is a Jamaican Vincentian with a diverse background in the creative arts, ranging from journalism, public relations, project management, event planning, promotion, and has done so for over 2 decades. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communications with a minor in Criminology from the University of the West Indies, Mona. She also holds an associate level certificate in project management from UE. She has continuously expanded her knowledge through courses in health management with the University of Washington and social work with the University of South Florida. Committed to continuous growth and development, she is currently pursuing a master's in public health and health administration. Upon receiving her diagnosis of endometriosis, Nika Anderson Isaacs channeled her struggle with this chronic painful disease into the creation of a non-profit organization called FAM, Fashion, Art, Music for Endometriosis, which is geared towards raising awareness, increasing advocacy for more accessible treatment options in the Caribbean. FAM for Endometriosis also has a fundraising arm, which is for assisting individuals in accessing care for this condition. These exceptional efforts afforded her a feature in Essence magazine in 2022. Outside of her professional endeavors, Nika continues actively engaged in serving her community, volunteering for various organizations. She lives a well-rounded life in which she expresses and explores all aspects of herself through her love for music, poetry, dance, and the arts via her entertainment company, Jump Life Entertainment. Despite these various roles, she manages to strike her work-life balance to the unwavering support of her husband of 18 years and her amazing 3-year-old son. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our beautiful panelists. Good night, ladies, and thank you for joining us from all around the world. It's morning for some of us, and it's still night for some of us. So welcome and thank you for being here. So we're just going to get right into it. And the order is Zoe, Shantana, Ravin, and Nika. And our first question is, when were you diagnosed with endometriosis? What led to your diagnosis? And how long did it take from the first time you experienced symptoms to the date that you were diagnosed?
Okay, so for me to not be long-winded, essentially I was diagnosed just over 5 years now. However, I've had my symptoms since 14 years old. I had been to numerous doctors about the amount of pain. It was to the point where if I knew my cycle was coming, I would just stay at home and wait for the pain to come for fear that it would happen to me on the road. But in my late 20s, I recognized that more and more it wasn't just monthly as the years progressed. I found myself where it was leading up to every day to the point where I had to quit all of my jobs and I was just at home essentially. I had to consider moving back home and, it was at that point I had to just say, I'm not leaving without answers because naturally, as everyone can relate, all the previous assessments were, I was being told that everything is normal, everything is fine, you're healthy. The pain is probably psychosomatic because at the time I was serving roughly a third of the island as the one of the regional psychologists. And so they felt that it was psychosomatic. It was my stress manifesting as pain. And it was one of those things where I was basically at my wit's end. I was about 3 to 4 months into just being at home nonstop because of pain. And I went to my country's capital to see the last person that everybody suggested, having seen all the other specialists that turned me away to say, you're fine, you're normal. And it was on the admission of being admitted into hospital for pain management. I had to go on morphine at that point that the gynecologist on duty at that point was like, this sounds like you have something called endometriosis. Naturally, I've never heard of the word before. Ironically, working in hospitals, seeing patients all the time, never heard the word before. And so that is when I had my first of, unfortunately, many surgeries that was diagnostic and they performed excision at that point. And I woke up with a stage 3 diagnosis of endo, but within a year of that, it very soon upgraded me to stage 4 frozen pelvis endometriosis. So that's the long and short of my journey. So on average, if you're calculated, it took about 15 years, but it took about 10 years of me actively trying to figure out what was wrong for me to get a diagnosis at 30. So I turned 30 in the hospital and woke up to that news.
Wow. Thank
Yeah.
you, Zoe. And I think we can all relate to the length of time it took to get to that diagnosis. But on your birthday, oh, I felt that.
Yeah, the 30th. That was the way to start the decade.
Wow. Thank you, Zoe. Shantana?
For me, I'm listening to Zoe's story, and there was a lot of similarities as so many of us are saying the same thing. I had a 14-year delay in my diagnosis, and I was 11 when I started my cycle. And I remember my cycle being excruciating, and I thought it was normal. I literally, because you watch other women in my family go through the same thing, and just thinking that it's supposed to be this painful. And at some point, the pain changed and it became even worse. So I started going to the doctors, and it was always, it's in your head. We heard that it's killer cramps, and take Motrin or Tylenol, give her a heating pad, drink some warm tea, or have some soup, something warm to soothe the stomach. None of that worked. And I literally felt like I was dying, like my insides were falling out. I don't know how many times I went back and forth to the doctors only to hear the same thing, that it was in my head. And it was 14 years of the same thing, the cycle. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 25. And that became, and I don't know how many people can say I've been through that, a horrific doctor. The doctor actually brushed me off to another provider, and he said to me, "You people should be stronger than that. You're supposed to take pain better." The "you people" is what had me. And so I'm still going to this doctor because at the time I felt like, what did I know? The doctor knew more than me. It's their expertise. This is what they had extensive training and schooling for. And maybe it's not nothing wrong. If you're told that for so many years, you start to believe that. And so that was a part of my journey, believing that every time I had a pain, I would say, am I really in pain? Imagine having pain and it's stabbing and burning and ripping, and not being able to move or go to school during your cycles, and you're questioning yourself. And I remember one time the doctor said to me, I can't see you anymore. Like, you're going to go to another doctor. Like, literally, this is how he's talking to me. So he brushed me off to a new provider. Thank God he did. Thank God he brushed me off, because that new provider, my first appointment with him, he said, "Have you ever heard of endometriosis?" And I said, "No." I was like, "I never heard of it." But in the inside, I was excited, because now I'm thinking, wait, there's a name. There's a name associated to everything that I've been explaining, expressing, that I was going through. There was a name to it. So now you get excited thinking I wasn't crazy. It wasn't in my head. I wasn't exaggerating. And I remember having my laparoscopy May 2001. I was 20, I had just turned 25 that February. And when I woke up, sometimes you don't always remember everything. But I remember him coming back to my room and saying to me, "Yes, you do have endometriosis." Once the pathology came back, I found I had stage 4. And he said to me, my surgery took many hours because my organs was fused. They were like Laffy Taffy, stuck to one another. And he said it took him a long time. He had to clean me up before he can actually do anything to remove the endometriosis. But I never had the excision surgery at that time. It was more so ablation, which is, it kept coming back and kept coming back. And I wasn't educated at the time about endo. I had no idea what it was, what it entailed, how how my body will go through different challenges with it. But that was how I got diagnosed. That was my first, just any word or inkling of, there's a name to this disease. But to find out that there was no cure to it, that sent me into a deep depression. It was like a downward spiral, because at first you're happy, you're excited that there's a name. And I'm thinking, okay, so how do you fix it? What do I take? What, did you remove it all? So I'm thinking like it's a cancer. You remove all the cancer and now I'm better. Do I have to take a treatment? No. And when he said that to me, that changed everything for me. But that was my beginning of, not the beginning, but 14 years of my journey prior to getting diagnosed.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shantana.
Shantana.
Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing. I think we can all see ourselves in your story. Yeah. Robin?
Okay, so with me, I got my diagnosis about 14 years ago when I was 20. However, I started experiencing painful menstrual cramps from the age of 12. So I started my period at the age of 12, and my mom, she has a role to play in my diagnosis because She always told me, oh, you're just one of those who have bad period pains. It's normal. You have to get used to it because she never had these symptoms. Till this day, she does not have any menstrual cramp symptoms. So after that, I think it was up until Form 3, I was introduced to ibuprofen by my friend. I was introduced to ibuprofen. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take my ibuprofen. I'm good. I get to community college. That's when my symptoms were really, really bad. And up till then, I was only seeing the general practitioner. My mom never took me to a gynecologist. So again, I'm thinking, okay, this is normal. I just need to find a way to relieve my symptoms. So I'm taking stronger painkillers. Fast forward, I started working at the bank, and I noticed every time I ate, I started feeling full. So again, I'm going to my mom. I'm like, Mom, something is wrong. So she's like, okay, maybe you have a hernia or it's an ulcer. I go to the doctor, and basically they told me I have an ovarian cyst, and it was this size, bigger than a grapefruit. So they told me I needed to have emergency surgery. And at the time at 20, I had never heard of an ovarian cyst. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have surgery. My belly button is going to be ruined, you know? And so I had the surgery. And after I had the surgery, that's when I got the diagnosis. So they were like, okay, you have endometriosis. And the way it happened, my doctor at the time, he just handed me a brochure. Oh, you have endometriosis? He gave me the brochure, and that was it. When I went home, I read the brochure, I did my research, and I was just totally distraught because one, I ended up losing my ovary because of the surgery. So think about it. I'm 20. I lost part of my reproductive system. Oh, and at the time, maybe it's a bit TMI, but I was still a virgin. So I'm like, I haven't done anything in life and I'm losing body parts. Like, what's going on? So I was really concerned about my fertility. And then again, no medication was prescribed. So he simply said, you can take ibuprofen or birth control. I opted not to take the birth control. Fast forward, I end up studying in Taiwan, MedKimet, and she can tell you there were times where I could not go to class or I could not go out on activities because it was very painful. Not only that, I have severe endo belly. So I don't know if some of you have that. So sometimes I may not be in pain, but because I'm so self-conscious about how I look, I will just opt to stay home because I don't want people asking me questions like, are you pregnant? Or did you put on weight? Like, what's going on? So that's another major symptom I had to deal with. And after that, I ended up getting another ovarian cyst on the existing ovary. And again, my doctor in St. Lucia, she wanted to put me on Lupron. I read up on it and I'm like, I'm not going on that drug. So I will have to find a way to just deal with it on my own. And this has been my story pretty much. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Reverend, for sharing. I think I'm a little bit speechless. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a
It's
lot.
a lot.
And especially when in my group of friends, I'm the only one with endometriosis. A few
Yeah.
of them have PCOS, but I've not been able to relate to anyone else within my group. So again, you get that feeling of isolation. And
Yeah.
then will they even understand? Do they think I'm exaggerating? Because on the outside, I look okay. You would never think, I'm suffering, but this has been my journey.
Yeah. And I completely understand about endobelly. It's, the
Mm-hmm.
endobelly and I are one at this point. It seems like it's always there. So I
Yes.
understand that. Nico? Is Nika here? Did she get kicked off?
I saw her there a second ago. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
she got kicked off, but I did see her there a second ago.
Yeah. I just saw her there. Okay, well, while she logs back in, we'll move on to the next question and then she can answer when she gets back on. So the next question is, what treatments have you used? Okay, she's back. Yes. Okay, Nika.
I'm back.
Okay, it's your turn.
Maybe everybody's story was so overwhelming. My phone was like, tap out, tap out, tap out. This is too much. You guys seen me and hearing me?
We are hearing you, but we are not seeing you. It says that your camera is off.
Okay, well, I don't know, but maybe it's better to hear me if you're not seeing me.
Okay.
My journey with endometriosis pretty much began when my period started. It's been pain, like a lot of pain for like over the years. I always wonder, why is it that so much other girls can go through the period and nobody know? Because when back in the day, you hear about the period, usually it's supposed to be a private thing. And well, at least that's part of what they told us at my school. So it's just like it's supposed to be a ladies' thing and it's supposed to be very private and you're supposed to be modest about it. But here I am with drama every single month. In high school, everybody have to be taking me to the nurse. I couldn't function and stuff. But there was no diagnosis till probably about 7 years ago. And I'm like, this is so crazy. We're going to doctors for doctor to doctor like all the year, and nobody could say like this is what it was. And the first time, obviously, when I was told that it could be endometriosis, but they aren't sure, I would have to do a medical procedure to double check. And I'm just like, yeah. But I kind of put it off. But then as the pain started to get like worse, I'm like, the older I get, this thing seems to be getting worse. And one of my supervisors at the time said, she said, you just can't keep going like this. You have to figure out what is the problem because, this thing disrupts your life. There are days you can't come to work. There are days you have to be missing school. There are days you have to plan your whole life around this situation. And a lot of times people just think you're flaking on it, that you're not wanting to show up, and it is not that. It's just that you're unable to. And I think unless sometimes when you have endometriosis, you feel like people don't quite get it unless they go through it. So even to explain their thinking is an exaggeration when you're really not exaggerating. As a matter of fact, you tend to downplay it a lot just to get by and not have to deal with like the comments, even though sometimes it's not intentional, just the comments and all of that. So people think you're exaggerating, meantime you're trying to downplay what is happening. So long and short, I got the diagnosis about 7 years. I had to then go and do surgery, but of course it's a very expensive process. And so when you find a diagnosis, that is one thing, but being able to afford it is another thing. Just being able to go to the gynecological visits, that's just one thing. Then the treatment again is another thing. And then and the average person can't afford it, much less the person who is not average. And it's crazy because while it's so expensive, your body goes through so much, which makes the situation so much worse. And then having to deal with so much different factors like the endobelly and how you have to deal with seeing yourself, and then the insensitive comments that people make, even your doctors. One doctor even suggested that with the infertility issues that I was facing as I left my husband, it's like the thing sometimes that the healthcare providers would tell you is worse than the comments that the average person would make, because you just think that they would know better and stuff. And I said, at the time that we weren't even sure at that time, because obviously with endometriosis, there is fertility issues sometimes for some women. And I said, I don't think that's like a really good comment right now. And the fact that my husband was willing to stay with me, whether or not he knew that I was able to have a child, like you're suggesting that if he could be the problem, then I should just leave him. That's kind of crazy. And that's like dealing with endometriosis. That's not what you want to hear. But I just say to say that these are some of the insensitive comments. There are a range of comments that women with endometriosis would have to deal with from healthcare providers and others. but that's just the range of it. And it was good to know what it is, but it was sad to know that there's nothing much that you can do about it. So it's like, okay, yes, I know what the problem is, but then there's no cure. And then you're just like, wait, what? So knowing what you have to deal with on a regular basis. So you mean I have to deal with this pain for the rest of my life? And you mean I have to be on meds for the rest of my life because to manage the pain? And the pain is just one sub factor that comes with endometriosis. It don't talk about the psychological impact that it has. It don't talk about the financial impact that it has. It don't talk about the social, the psychosocial, like all of the components. It don't talk about how it affects some women and their relationship, marriage, or with their partner. It don't talk about how it affects the family on a whole and the finances. And a lot of times, when we're older, we're able to do something about it. Because I even said to myself when I got my diagnosis, well, Lord, maybe it wouldn't make a difference if I found out a few years before, because then how would I be able to afford this anyway? And so these are some of the things that, I mean, I'm going to wrap up now because I know I just answered the first question, but these are some of the things that came to my mind in trying to advocate and help other women, because I know even if I was a young girl and I found out that I had endometriosis, there was nothing I would have been able to do financially about it. And that is the reality of a lot of young women and young girls when going through painful period and having these things that they can't do nothing about. And the reality is we will always be in a financial state because we have to live with endometriosis. We'll always have to be making financial provisions for your health care in that aspect. No matter how healthy you are, you'll always have to be putting aside money and funds to support your lifestyle, which is not really a lifestyle, it's just the way things are, but it's just the reality of us who live with endometriosis, which has so much other add-ons, which I didn't even mention. And that's like most people have fibroids, most people have so much other medical complication, and of course the autoimmune challenges that come. So sometimes while you have endometriosis and you're facing so much other medical issues, you don't even realize that it is related to endometriosis until you start to research further about what endometriosis is, and then you realize, wow, then all these other autoimmune challenges that I have is as a result of the endometriosis. And as you continue to live with endometriosis, things pop up from time to time, which is it essentially one way or the other affects your mental health, but then that's another story. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey with finding out that I have endometriosis, just living with chronic pain all the years, it getting out of control, finally getting a diagnosis, having to go do a surgery. So once you do the surgery, confirming that you do have endometriosis, they do go in and they do what they can do. But even when they do the surgery, it's like it can grow back. You may have to do several surgeries. So it's like mentally, you're already preparing that, okay, I always have to be in a state of finding this big sum of money to always be dealing with something to help me manage the pain as best as possible. So yeah, that's life with endometriosis.
Thank you, Nick. And you raised a really good point about being able to afford treatment and how that also impacts how you live and whether you can. I mean, you have to make hard choices sometimes. I was on Instagram, I think it was yesterday, and I can't remember who posted it, but she posted a question, treatment or groceries? Like, these are some tough decisions that we often have to make. With my limited resources, do I buy food to eat or do I go and get the treatment that I need? And we have to make hard choices sometimes because sometimes you have to choose one or the other. You can't have both sometimes
That was
because of
me.
this.
Yeah, that was me.
Because
I
of the
did that.
circumstances.
It was, okay, I have to pay this bill, but can this bill wait because I have to get this medication? This medication is going to cost $3,000 just to have certain injections. And I'm not going to speak any names because we don't promote those. But at the time, I was taking medications that I should not have been taking. One, I wasn't educated on it. Two, the doctors didn't give me proper information about it. Three, I didn't ask about the information. I wasn't my advocate for myself at the time. but I had to choose groceries, medicine, bills. Which one was going to come first? My medicine always came first.
Hmm.
In a way, I don't think it's that we weren't advocate for ourselves. I think we became more advocate for ourselves because we just, at the time, it's just a response to what you're going through. You want to be healed, you want to be rid of the pain, so you're willing to try what is available to get rid of the pain. And when you realize what your reality is after the information has soaked in, and when your reality has set in, is when you realize, no, I have to speak up for myself. I have to research more. I have to speak up for others who don't know, because there was a point that I don't know. So I think a lot of times when I hear the narrative, I have to remind women we can't even be hard on ourselves, because at the time we did what we could with the information, because that's what we know. And we have chosen to not just become women with endometriosis suffer. We have chosen to turn our pain into purpose and to help other persons through raising the awareness and the different things that we do. And so I just want women, all of us, to be kinder to ourselves, because we do what we can with what we have. And so we're trying to empower other women to have the knowledge earlier, so that they can make better decisions or be advocates earlier than we were able to. Because, and then again, it's also very sensitive, because as we think about our bodies as women, we've always been told, to be modest, things relating to your body and your period. People don't even want to talk about period. It's still somewhat of a taboo. Talking about pads, sex, all of these stuff is still a taboo. So we're meant to feel shame concerning our bodies, and the thing worse, when we're feeling shame against, and your period represents something about femininity, and it represents something about reproduction. And a lot of us who do have endometriosis have reproductive issues. Some have been able to have children, but there has been challenges even for persons who have children with reproductive issues. So we're been meant to feel a lot of shame and have a lot of negative comments concerning these things. And that is a part of the advocacy. That is a part of the mental health conversation that we have to have as it concerns endometriosis, how we approach it, how we help other women approach it. Because what we've been able to do, we want younger girls to be able to achieve that way faster than we were able to do. We can't do much for them and the pain, but we can either try to give them information and the awareness, or to give them the resources that can help them do as much surgeries or intervention as is possible.
Thanks, Nika. And that takes us right into our second question. What treatments have you used, and have they been helpful? So we start with Zoe and go around the clock again.
Boy, I tell you, I don't know what I have not tried. I see a lot of endo treatment bingos, and I feel like a bingo right across the board with all the options. I mean, when I was first diagnosed, I was one of those persons that have always been an advocate for being as natural and as organic as possible. So I remember when I first got my diagnosis, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go raw vegan, I'm gonna do yoga, I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna do all the things. And I was a raw vegan for 9 months consistently, persistently. And that actually fed my endo, because the irony of it is that the healthier that you are, the more you feed your growth. So that is what transformed my pelvis into a frozen one, which then led to surgeries number 2 and 3, where I ended up losing both my fallopian tubes and then having to do about a 14 or 15-hour surgery in order to unfreeze my pelvis, essentially. I had my intestines kind of looped and fused together in some parts. My left ovary was fused with my pelvic muscle and all of those things. So as a result of that, I realized, okay, so being super disciplined and super healthy wasn't necessarily the way to go, because it feeds me, it feeds the endo as well. And so I then ended up deciding that, okay, trying physiotherapy, because, with each extensive pelvic surgery, you're cutting into muscle, your bladder. And if you're like me, you had to have a lot of those organs messed with, corrected, or tampered with in some way. So you have to avoid incontinence and all of those things. So physiotherapy has been it. I've done chemical menopause for at least 3.5 years in the 5 years since I've been 5, 6 years since I've been diagnosed. So that injection, I've done that. I've done those pain patches that they only give to cancer patients for pain management. I've done therapy, I've done yoga, I've done, pain management specialist where they give me medication and I found myself talking and drooling at the same time. You couldn't maintain a job. So it's literally, I've gone down the gamut. And of course, I've had many physicians that would just say, oh, why don't you just have a baby? Getting pregnant gives your body 9 months off, and most persons find that their symptoms don't return right away after having a child. First of all, we've heard, I just said lost my fallopian tube. So how does that work? And it's a minimum of $1 million Jamaican dollars to do laparoscopic surgery here. So imagine you're doing those surgeries, you're doing treatments, and of course, endometriosis is not listed as a chronic disease for any kind of health insurance subsidy. So a lot of these additional treatments outside of surgery, medication, physiotherapy, pain specialists, all of these things are going out of pocket. You're paying 100% for. So needless to say, there's just a lot of things that I have tried. But what I find works for me is having a cocktail of medication as well as rest. I now recognize that I cannot do too much. I know some persons may think, and I know even a lot of the times persons will tell me, why you love staying home so much? I'm like, listen, pick one activity. If you want us to link up, we're not going to do 3, 4 things. We're going to do one, and then there's going to be a nap before and after. So being able to know exactly budgeting my energy, what my body can manage, managing my diet, knowing what my triggers are, and being flexible with it in the sense that things will evolve. So what may work for my intestines this 3 months may not work in the next 6 months. And so it's just really learning the ebb and flow of my own body, figuring out what mix of medications work for me, and finding the right team of doctors that will have to hear a curse word or two when I don't feel like I'm being heard. Being able to shop around and knowing my options and educating myself in terms of what other options are out there, because a lot of the different treatments that I have tried over the years have been because I have brought it up. I was like, what about a pain management specialist? Do we have that here? Who do I go to for that? What is it something that I need physiotherapy for? Because as you would have heard many of my speakers say a while ago, that you just get a pamphlet, you're just given this diagnosis and they send you home, and they just want to make sure that there's no infection from the surgical wounds, and that's about it. There's very little follow-up in terms of how do you fix yourself? How do you remain functional? How do you get back to functional? And so it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of other things. So I'm at a point now where friends and family know that they should not ask me, have I tried this? Because the answer is yes. I know you're trying to help. I know you mean well, but you will get a very aggressive response from me if you hear, have you tried this? Because believe me, I have. So just to recap, physiotherapy helps, yes. So being consistent with that, staying movement, knowing to budget my energy, trial and error of pain medication combinations, and learning about the foods that work for me and the ones that don't. Those have gone a long way. And unfortunately, the occasional chemical menopause for 3 to 6 months, giving my body that break. Although the hot flashes aren't great and the side effects are awful, like the weight gain, but the toss-up is not being in pain 24/7. So you kind of have to pick and choose which rock and hard place you want to go about pursuing. So yeah, those are the ones that I've done so far.
Thank you, Zoe. That's a lot. And I understand about having to budget your energy. Um, Sometimes it's difficult for people to understand. I mean, that's the honest truth. If they are not experiencing it, then it's hard for them to understand. But all it takes is a little empathy and putting themselves in your shoe, and that goes a long way. And when I think what's you and I can't remember if it was Rafi who talked about getting a pamphlet when you're diagnosed. All I got was the word endometriosis written on a piece of paper, torn off and handed to me, go home and read up on it. And I think it's way past time for doctors to spend more time with patients when you're telling them about such a diagnosis. And I mean, spend more time talking to you about what this means for you personally, individually. What did you find? What do you think can help me? And if it is that you can't help, tell me. I might have to refer you to somebody else. And so part of our advocacy is also advocating for healthcare professionals to do better. Really and truly to do better. Shantana?
Where do I start? I mean, I have had so many treatments. I know when you read my bio and I saw your face when you read 16 surgeries. So when I say that now, I can say that and I can just take a breath. When I used to say that, it would kind of catch my breath and I'll have to pause for a second. As horrific as that sounds, having 16, it was more the medications that kind of took my body into a different direction. I did the medical menopause medication that they give prostate cancer patients. So it was a chemotherapy, so to speak. And I've done that for years. And not knowing that you weren't supposed to do that for that extended amount of time, as a result, I have a lot of irreversible damage to my body. And you can look at me, but you won't see it. You can't tell. Like it's such an invisible thing. And people will say, well, you look like you're fine. I've been on different type of birth control. I think I've tried every birth control there is probably to try except the IUD. I have done all types of pain medications, from the patches to the oral medication to doing every surgery. They would give us this morphine drip that I was actually allergic to, and no one ever knew that I was allergic. My body would not respond. My heart rate would go down tremendously every time I would hit the pump, not realizing that my body wasn't doing too well with it. But I had pain, so I would hit the pump while I was recovering from each surgery. And I had damage from that as well. I've tried acupuncture, pelvic floor therapy, the pain patches. I've tried, it has been, there was another one that I tried, aquatherapy. I've tried physical therapy. I've watched the things that I ingested, whether it was things that I was eating or drinking, monitoring how that would my body would react to those certain things, and just removing things that I would have that I felt triggered my endometriosis, and I would have a flare if I was to do certain things. But then it was a time it didn't matter what I did. I still had flares. I could try a medication and it didn't work. I recall going back and forth to the ER because nothing worked. And it was this one medicine that they would give you as a shot. And that was the only thing that will calm me down a little bit. Not me per se, but the endometriosis. It would kind of take the edge off and I could live a little bit. I can function a little bit. But I was going through all of these different medications. At Zoe, I heard you say about being on a pain medication, functioning but drooling at the same time. I remember being on them and just being present, but I wasn't really there. My body was there, but I wasn't there because of the medicine. The medicine puts you into a fog. and then it gives you brain fog. So you have all of these things on top of taking all of these different cocktails, and only to be called a drug seeker. I'm seeking to have pain relief. You can call it what you want, but don't call it a drug seeker. It is seeking to have pain relief so I can function and go about my day, to have a good day. A lot of the medicines that I've tried are hardcore pain medications. I had a pain specialist that I had to go to because at some point when the laws changed here in the US, our doctors couldn't prescribe us pain medication. We had to be referred out to a pain management specialist in order to even get anything for pain. And what to me, I feel like it was, once going that route, I felt like I was a criminal, because criminals have to take urines and have to go through all those channels just to get the pain medication. So now, in order to receive it, every so often, they will periodically drug test you as if you were doing something wrong because you were trying to alleviate or have some relief from your pain. So that is still happening currently today with a lot of people, not even just with endometriosis, just having to go to pain management specialists because there was a lot of things happening with abusing the medication and doctors giving patients medications and doing things illegally for funding. And so they had to cut down on it. And so we suffer from that now. That's just a snippet of some of the things that I have tried. Now it's more so I love my all natural things, but I do have flares, and I feel like my flares are more controlled by some of the holistic things that I do. I did have excision surgery finally. And as a result, a lot of my pain too was coming from, I had adenomyosis. And when I had my uterus removed from that, I found more relief. But I still have pain from endometriosis still to this day, but it's not as excruciating as it was. And so I don't find myself on those extensive medications that I once was on. I still do my pelvic floor therapy. I do yoga, I do meditation, and I still dabble with acupuncture here and there. But I still have my pain medication if I need it.
Thank you, Shantana. That was a lot.
Yes.
And you said that's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
We go through a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Robin, and then Nico.
Yes. When Shantana said 16 surgeries, I was like, wow, 16 surgeries. I've only had one, and that one was a lot for me. So in terms of treatment, I've mainly used painkillers throughout this entire journey and birth control. So at one point, when I got the other cysts on the remaining ovary, I was put on birth control for a year. It helped in the sense that my cyst did not grow, however, it did not shrink. And so that was in 2015. When I returned home for summer vacation, I visited a herbalist. I cannot remember what she gave me, but all I can tell you, after 2 months, the cyst was gone. It disappeared. Yes. So then when I returned to Taiwan for school, within 8 months or so, there was a time where I bled for 60 days, not heavy bleeding, but for 60 days. So I visited 2 hospitals and a private clinic. They all gave me 3 different diagnoses. One said it was a uterine polyp, one said it's just an abnormal period, and the other one said it was endometrial hyperplasia. I think that's the excess thickening of the uterine lining. So at that point, I'm like, okay, 3 different diagnoses, what do I do? So they recommended a DNC. I contacted my gyno back home. This is another thing. And she basically gave me like a one-line answer. So I was left on my own. I opted not to do the DNC. I returned to St. Lucia and I sought out the herbalist again. So she gave me something, I cannot remember, which is bad. I should have taken note, but it was all natural. And I got some relief then. Right now, I'm only taking Ponston. It's slightly stronger than ibuprofen. I also do the castor oil packs. I noticed from since last year, my cycle has improved, and in terms of the cysts, it has shrunk just a bit. So I'm doing my castor oil packs. I try to do these about 10 times in a month. I also do vaginal steaming, and I have done acupuncture. So these have been my treatments so far. I am considering excision surgery, but the issue I'm having, do I do excision surgery or I freeze my eggs? Because I'm already 34 and I want to have kids, but excision surgery, based on my calculations, it would be roughly about 10,000 US. And we don't have excision surgeons in St. Lucia. So I'm still debating freeze the eggs versus excision surgery. I would have to speak to a specialist to find out what route is best for me, because I don't want a situation, okay, I have the surgery, but it comes back and then I'm not able to carry a pregnancy full term. So that's something I've been really struggling with. I need to get the money to do so. So yes, that's my treatment so far.
Can I share something?
Yes.
Because I wanted to jump out of my seat when you said that. Preserve your fertility. They don't say that. A lot of they don't tell us that. Preserve your fertility. I wish I would have had that opportunity to preserve my fertility before my extending my child, my family building, that option was taken away. And I was wrestling with what you're wrestling with now. Do I do the surgery or do I preserve my fertility? And this is when I finally got to even go see a reproductive endocrinologist at all. I tell women now, preserve it. Goes to
Okay.
see the specialist to see what that looks like for you, because it looks different for everyone. But I don't want you to miss that opportunity because something else came up or something else happened with the body, and
Right.
you no longer have that option. So I personally, if I was in your situation, that would be the first thing that I would do.
Because for me, I'm working with one set of eggs because I have one ovary, and even that ovary is currently compromised because of the cyst. It's an endometrioma. So, yeah. But thanks for the advice.
You're welcome.
Time is running, the clock is ticking, so I have to work on it as soon as possible.
First step
I
is make an
just
appointment.
saw Zoe said usually recommend excision and then freeze the eggs so you have better quality eggs. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Again, taking us back to that conversation about the sort of difficult decisions that we have to make when we live with endo. But Rav and I would definitely encourage you to go see the specialist. Find out what your options are, because each of us, our bodies are different. How endo affects us is different. So speak to them about what your options are, because your goal is to one day carry your pregnancy and have a successful pregnancy at that. So let them know what your goal is and then see what is best for you, whether it's to have surgery first, whether it's to freeze your eggs, whatever that looks like for you, go for it. Go for it.
Thanks. I'll definitely do that.
You're welcome. Nika?
Hey, boy, I want to advise her to give herself the option for real, because the funny thing about it, I think don't when you don't know, it's one thing, but when you do know, it's another thing. Like for me, whether or not I wanted to have a child was up in the air, but when I was told that I couldn't have a child, that just did something mentally that kind of messed with the brain. And so, if at all possible, you want to give yourself options. For me, in terms of medication, I have tried a lot of things, from different types of birth control, which was the first red flag for me. Those never work for me. My body hates birth control. So, like for one particular one, within, it was on day 2 of the birth control, and I gained 7 pounds already. So I'm like, absolutely not. Different levels of pain meds, chemical menopause. I had to do that, especially when I was preparing for surgery. I was on treatment with Zoladex and some other medication for 6 months to shut down my body from having a period, so I could be prepared to stop the growth, so that they could go in and it wouldn't get worse. Because the thing, for some reason, it was just going rapidly for me. So they had to slow it down, then go in and burn and do what they had to do. I would have tried pain patches. I tried acupuncture, vaginal steaming, and the different flares that you would get from time to time is like you have to change out medication ever so often. I realized over the years, even though you are on like hardcore medication that had to be prescribed, because clearly the regular pain med, like people say, oh, you want Panadol, or so you won't even waste my time and take certain medication. That would literally just waste swallowing, because it would not work. And so sometimes people just think like you want like hardcore drug, it make you feel like it's a drug addict or something, and it's not like that. You just want some relief, and half of the time it don't even like fully take away the pain. It's just like it just take the edge off. And sometimes even though you've taken the meds, people say, you still feel pain? You sure? You not be extra or something like that? I'm like, I promise you, I'm not being extra. But yeah, those are some of what I would have done to try and manage. Since surgery, there has been some improvement, but it was getting terrible again. And I had a fibroid, which I'm still trying to work on shrinking. I'm also in the process of going natural and going into selling some natural products, which have been helpful. Which I will talk to you guys about a little later down in the program and stuff. But going natural is a good fit for a lot of persons, but with endometriosis is not a one size solution for all. And that is what we have to tell people, because what works for Zoe would not necessarily work for me, and what works for me would not necessarily work for Delia. So sometimes people ask your advice, we can just advise them as best as we can based on our situation, because sometimes we have to be careful, because when we tell a person certain thing and it don't work, then they get, and they're understandable, so they get like upset or whatever. But everybody's journey with endometriosis is slightly different, though it is very similar.
So true, Nika. And just a one rapid question around the room. Were you able to access treatment in your country, or did you have to travel to get it?
Well, I could start. I had to travel to get it. I wasn't able to access it here, and that again makes it even more expensive. So, and based on what you want to do, you may have to travel to other areas. So yeah, it was super expensive, but that was not offered locally for me.
For me, it's offered locally in terms of the country, but I had to go to the opposite end of the island to access the specialized care. And I still have to travel for 4 hours to the other side of the island, which is not anything close to having to leave the country, but it does add up just the same. So yeah, locally, yes, but only in a very specific part of the island.
I've done locally, but I've done about 7 physicians before I got to the right physician to actually do the procedure. And then now that provider is no longer here in this state. And so we don't have anyone that I would trust to treat endometriosis, excision surgeon, or anything like that here. So we would have to travel to Atlanta, or some patients have went to New York, went to different parts of this different states. So where I'm at currently in my state, I wouldn't be able to find anyone. But in my country, yes.
Okay, the way I'll answer this, yes, we have treatment, but the treatment is not effective. Okay, so in terms of treatment, every single time it's like the go-to is birth control. Birth control, everything birth control. Whether you have endo-PCOS, it's birth control. But in terms of specialists, we don't have any specialists. And I have a really big issue with the gynecologists back home, especially one in particular. When it comes to giving referrals, they're very hesitant. My thing is, you're not an endo specialist. Why aren't you giving the patients referrals to see actual specialists? I don't understand the logic. I don't know if it's a money-making thing. They probably figure they're going to lose their clients. It doesn't make sense to me. So we don't have effective treatment. The go-to is birth control. They're promoting the IUD. I have had women who follow our organization's page indicate that the IUD has caused them a lot of negative side effects. So I was thinking of getting on it, but I'm hesitant just because of that. And also, they dissuade patients from going the natural routes. You know, there's this battle in St. Lucia because we have this popular, I don't know how to call him, naturalist. He promotes a lot of natural products per Scalash. I think we have a St. Lucian on Javian, so maybe Javian knows him. And many times they would say like, oh, he's very controversial, but his stuff works. The difference with using the natural products, what I notice, you have to be consistent. It's not going to happen overnight. So maybe you might need to stick to the treatment or the protocol for at least 1 year. So many times people will be like, oh, I've tried this, I've tried that, but within 3 months, I'm not seeing any difference. You need to use it for a longer period. Okay, so yeah.
Okay. And next question. How has this condition affected you personally?
Where do
Zoe?
I begin? I think it affects me to the point where it is a part of my personality, to be fair. I mean, I remember recently I had to move and was going through some stuff that I had from high school. Sorry, and I stumbled upon my high school backpack, and in it, I had, of course, expired, but medications and heat packs and like sick leave forms in my bag from 15 years old, you know? So that's just an indication of how so it has controlled or determined a lot of my life. I find that everybody knows me as Auntie Zoe because my handbag will have all the things, you know. It will have the medications, the wipes, the pain patches, the this, the that, the other, all the things that I need in case I have a flare up unexpectedly. Similarly, also because of the autoimmune issues like the allergies and the asthma and so on. So the creams and all the things, I've got it at all times. So I find that I am forced to be a planner because, of course, you can also you're not in a position to be like, oh, yeah, man, if somebody calls you right now to go and do a weekend, I'm like, wait, where does this fall in the month? Do I have enough supplies to walk with for 3 days? What if it's a bumpy ride? What if it's a long car ride? What if I need to stand up for long? Will I need my back brace? Will I need my massager? I realize that as much as I would love to be a minimalist, I have been forced to be a maximalist in ensuring that I have everything in order to just keep going. I also find too that it's forced me to be very resilient as a person because naturally, as persons would have mentioned before, you almost feel like a flake, you feel like a bad employee because you're constantly calling in sick, you're constantly flaking on friends or what it feels like flaking on friends because you make all of these plans, you're prepared, and then you just find yourself can't get out of bed. You know, it's hard to follow through on every commitment that you make. I myself have always prided myself on being able to work anywhere between 4 or 5 jobs, going to school and all the things. And now I'm relegated to one job that gives all the holidays, you know what I mean, and a part-time job. I can't commit too far in the future. So I find myself being an extreme planner, but non-committal at the same time. So I do find that it affects me in a lot of ways and how I relate to people, because I know that there's a question later on in terms of how it's affected friendships and relationships. And I've had relationships ended because they're aware that, you know, I do have fertility issues, that if I do want to have children, I would need at least 4 to 5 million Jamaican dollars for that maybe to even be a chance of being feasible, you know. And so, you know, it does affect all and everything. I know a lot of the times we like to say that we are not endo. I am someone who just, I am Zoe with endometriosis, not endometriosis has me. But there are times where I wonder to myself, who has who, you know, and I have to be at peace with that, because at the end of the day, I have gone through stages where I do things in an attempt to overcompensate for that and end up hurting myself in the long term. You know, you do too much and then you end up crashing, kind of thing. And so, you know, it's just allowed me to be very flexible as well. You can't be a rigid person because you never know how you're going to feel. And you've just had to, you know, be at peace with that. So definitely endometriosis has affected me personally in every way you can think of. It's just that being resilient, having a sense of humor makes it a little bit more bearable on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think I was nodding all throughout what you were saying, especially when you said about the packing and being an over planner. I could just give an example. I just had a work trip. It was a 1 week work trip, and my suitcase was the exact 50 pounds. And the person traveling with me was like, "We just went for 1 week. Why is your suitcase so heavy?" And I'm looking, I had to tell her, I'm like, I have to have backup outfits because, you know, I had this idea that I wanted to wear pants. But I know if I have a flare, I will not be able to wear pants. So I walk with backup dresses. And so it's like you have to always be prepared for whatever may happen because you just never know. You could have all these grand plans in your mind and will be like, and laugh at you. And so I completely understood that one. Yeah. Shantana.
Okay, so now we are triplets. Okay, because I'm sitting here, I'm nodding too. I'm like, yes, I know all of that. I've had, they call me the bag lady. My family and my friends, it's kind of a funny when they see me because I have to have everything packed. I have multiple bags and I'm only going across town. I can be going to a cousin's house or a friend's house to a function, but I have to have certain slippers. I have to bring maybe some bigger sweatpants or like, you know, just something bigger for me to change in for later because I get uncomfortable. My body may start hurting and I have to prepare. So I'm always prepared. I'm not going to go on a trip without having my medicine bag. That's one. I have to have my heating pad. It's all these different things that I have to take with me because I want to be prepared. And on my suitcases, if I buy a 4-piece set, I'm taking every piece on a trip with me. I don't care if it's a 3-day trip. I'm coming through the airport with everything. And as Zoe says, I'm pushing and now I'm hurting because I have too many bags, too much luggage, just trying to be prepared. So life changed drastically. And I used to look at it before I became, this is my new normal. I had to adapt that attitude in order to give myself grace. Prior to doing that, it was going to different outlets with people and them not understanding what I was experiencing and trying to appease other people, trying to make sure that they were okay. And I was the one with my insides literally falling out. But I wanted to make sure that everyone around me was okay and I would still be the life of the party. I'm literally just recovering, coming from surgery, not even a whole week out. And I'm at functions or I'm here or there, still trying to live that normalcy of what I used to be or who I used to be until I started saying, no, 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 I had to adapt a new normal. And in that new normal, I was like, okay, I'm not always prepared. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not going somewhere or not doing something. But prior to, I was the one that showed up for everything and everyone because I didn't want them to think I was being funny because I wasn't going to your function or I wasn't showing up for you the way that you wanted me to, because I have a disease that you have no knowledge or understanding of, and I'm still learning. Today is different. Today is different. I am who I am. I'm still a large person. My personality is still large, but I no longer prepare for the people. I prepare for Shantana, what's best for me. I move in situation and spaces that feels good for me, that gives me grace, that honors my space and the understanding. So I don't have to travel with a ton of medicine with me. When I'm not feeling well and it's time to go, I'm leaving. And so life used to be really different. I would show up in a space. I was married for a while, for a long while. And at the time, I was just being a team player and I was going to all the functions. And I was like, I'm literally in pain. And the funny thing was, he would actually know when I was in pain. There was something that I used to do to signal that I wasn't in a good space. My body was hurting. And I used to rub my legs, and I never realized that I did that. So life looked different. I was doing things that I didn't realize that I was doing. But people that loved me and that cared for me, that was around me, they would bring that to my attention and they would cater to me and say, okay, we got to go. It's time to go. Instead of me feeling uncomfortable because I'm the party pooper and I have to leave. Nope. Life is so much better that I am in a different space. And this is why I tell people I was in that space of the super preparation, driving myself crazy. I'm no longer doing that. No longer doing that.
Thank you, Robin.
Yes, so it has definitely affected my life. I mean, I am an introvert and I just found like I was becoming a hermit because I'm a home person. And because of all the symptoms, I'm like, I just prefer to stay home because when I go out, I have to deal with, a number of questions. Why you're not feeling well? And I got tired of doing that. Although this year I said, I'm going to challenge myself because I cannot keep living like this. Um, for me, it's really the chronic fatigue. After the chronic pain is the chronic fatigue. I am always tired. I'm always tired. If I'm going somewhere, I literally have to calculate, okay, I need to get home by 8 because I need to have at least 7 hours of sleep. This is my life. Even like for today, I was out last night and I told my friend, I need to get home by 9 because I have to wake up 5 o'clock to get myself ready for this session. And so sometimes I wonder, I share this with my best friend, how life would have been if I did not have endo, because I feel like I can do so much more, but it's limited me. And it's not to put pressure on myself, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, I could have achieved so many things, but I constantly need to rest, like basically recharging. And also, last year was the first time I used those sick leave days. Let me tell you, I literally took a day each month because before I was so guilty. I'm like, it's only my period. I'm sick, but it's my period. So I should still go in. And last year, I'm like, no, I have 12 days. I can take a day. I didn't take a day each month, but I definitely utilized it. And I'm like, no. My coworker was like, Robin, you need to listen to your body. Put yourself first. Because you have some coworkers, they're not sick, but they're using their sick days. So you use your sick days. And so this has been my new normal. Like it has become a part of my identity. Even my page, one of my pages on Facebook, not Facebook, Instagram, it's Endo Rovi, where I post all my endometriosis content, and people back home, they know me as the endometriosis go-to person because it's a part of my life. In terms of relationships, I just find myself constantly not making excuses, but I don't want to keep on saying, oh, it's because I'm not feeling well. So I have to be coming up with credible excuses because I would get the answer or the response. You still have that? You still dealing with that? It's a chronic illness. It's not going anywhere. Like, I don't understand why people don't get it. You still dealing with that? You're always sick, or you don't look sick. How do you want me to look? Like, you want me to have like black eyes or something, or like a rash? I don't know. But that's what I've been dealing with. The endobelly, as I mentioned earlier, that to me is one of the worst because I have kind of had to miss out on events just because I cannot find an outfit where I feel comfortable because I have the endobelly. And the thing with endobelly, it would just appear randomly. Randomly, you would wake up on a morning, stomach is on flat. By 3 p.m., boom. So then I have to think of, okay, I'm going to a cocktail. I need to wear this dress because I need to leave some room for when the endobelly appears, or I'm at the cocktail, I'm not eating too much. I'm starving, I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat too much because endobelly. So yeah, it has been rough. It has been rough.
Yeah, again, I'm nodding my way through what you're saying. Yep, completely understood. Nika?
Hi, for me, you literally have to plan your life around endometriosis. So it becomes a part, naturally becomes a part of your identity. You, no matter how liberated you are, you still hold back a lot in terms of sometimes people ask you like how you are, and you in your mind get tired of, saying because of the same things like people like you're still sick, you're always sick or whatever. So you just try to like just give them like a generic response. And it's just hard sometimes. It's just endometriosis is sucks balls, but oh shoops, I'm on being recorded. Yes, endometriosis is horrible. And it redefines you in so much ways, and you just constantly have to be trying to like the fatigue is so bad sometimes. Like you literally have to call like 1 minute I'll be fine, and I'm just like I can't make it. Like I literally can't. Like I just you come home, you plan I'm gonna cook today, and then it just the fatigue takes you over, and then for me, I would have pains before, during, and after sometimes based on what is happening in the month. And if you don't get enough rest, then your body punishes you. And when you get rest, sometimes you still feel like you're just in a perpetual state of tiredness. I try to exercise a lot and include mobility, strength training, and yoga and stuff to assist with that significantly. I think indirectly it affects all of us mental health in some ways because there's always the thought of Endo or how it impacts on your mind and the financial impact that it has on you. So because even if you're not dealing with a flare or the medication, you constantly have to always be mindful that you have to get certain checks done. You have to stay on top of certain things. And it's just like literally always there. Coping with it is, geez, like, I don't know. Endometriosis just really changes you in a way that you try to not make it impact you negatively. And so this is where advocacy and talking about it and enlightening other persons gives your life more meaning. It gives you some place to channel because we also understand how isolating it can feel and be understand the importance of support and safe spaces. So we try to be that for other persons and to let them know that they're not alone and that these are the ways that they can manage and cope with it. And even in expressing it, we have to keep reinforcing it because that in itself is not sufficient because mentally it takes you into some spaces, so you constantly have to be like channeling yourself out of that, and you just have to show up. And the thing is, when you get up and you show up, you don't look like, it's a silent pain, I would call it. You don't look like what you're going through. So that's the challenge for other persons as well. And what we have to understand, because we're showing up and we're showing up as the best version of ourselves, even when we're in pain, even when we're not feeling well, it's difficult for persons to understand, because it's easier to identify pain with like a physical representation. Like if they say a cast on somebody's and they say a broken, they say black and blue, but physically you're not seeing anything. So it's like you're not, you're not recognizing that, like, I will be the life for the party. I'll be just out there 1 minute and I just crash after that, because when the pain leak, you just have to park up somewhere like a car. And people's just like, but you were just there 1 minute. Yeah. And that's why I also tell people, like, when you see me out there just enjoying my life, leave me alone, because the good days, you have to just maximize it, because the bad days are so bad. And so you just learn to make use of the days that are good, and you live it up, because there are some days you just wish that you weren't feeling the way you feel. But then, that's just a reality. So you just learn to cope as best as you can and try to help others along the process to understand too that you're not alone. Others go through it. You will survive. And just to try to encourage persons to turn their pain into purpose and to see how best you can just look at it, in a positive way as possible. It's difficult to look at it positive when you're going through the pain, but it is what it is. It's just a reality. And so you just learn to not be bothered by it. And that is why what we manage in terms of our pain management is so good. Sometimes things that people would find painful, we don't find painful, because we literally dealing with pain all the time. And so it's a bit confusing to persons, I realize, to not understanding it. So we just have to keep having a conversation and help them to understand. Even when I'm looking at my best, it don't mean that I'm not in pain. It just means I'm not going to complain about it, because when you do express that you're not feeling well, people just be like, like, yeah, well, like as things said, like, how am I supposed to look? Like, yeah, like the more you're rolling on the ground and screaming and bawling, you can't do that. But you just push through. Pretty much.
Thanks, Nico. I have mastered how are you today? I'm okay. I'm the master of I'm okay. Because when I tell you I'm not okay, again, that's usually again, you still feel like that. I thought you just had surgery. It's a chronic illness, meaning there is no cure. I am going to live with this for the rest of my life. I have had 2 surgeries so far. I'm probably in need of another one. But I can't, I just can't. So I understand what everybody is saying. And now we get into the section about relationships. How has Endo affected your relationships, your ability to work, and your ability to go to school?
Well,
Zoe.
Aye. Well, they already say that the dating world is toxic. There's toxins in the dating pool. Add a chronic illness, and it makes it that much more a place to be. I'm at a point now where if anybody express any kind of interest to me, I just send them a few in the Instagram pages and be like, listen, this is what you're trying to get involved in. This is what it looks like. I know I look cute, but more often than not, we'll be Netflixing and chilling. But in general, I've had to find the friendships that are okay with not being checked in on every day. It's been those that have self-awareness and sensitivities, not the still or have you tried or why don't you or come on anyway, and definitely family and friends, those persons who have an understanding. I find that I have also distanced myself quite a bit emotionally as well as in terms of information as well, because I find that this is an area that I'm very sensitive about. And so if I bless you with the information about my body, If you then now do something insensitive, like boast to me that you're climbing the Blue Mountain without not training before, or, you know, boasting about how annoying it is that you have your 4 children, those kind of things. I find that I will subliminally hold it against you. So I'd rather not give you the information and just be like, you know what, it's because they don't know and they don't understand. Because I find that for persons that are closer to me, I definitely hold them to a much higher standard. And so they have to be aware that this is an area I'm sensitive about. Don't joke about this, or that. So I find that I'm very vocal with my boundaries when it comes on to closer relationships. And then on the professional setting, I find that again, I treat it just like how my medical trauma has forced me to be, in the sense where I tend to be quite defensive, informative, put everything in writing, because there's a lot of ignorance in the workplace. You may have a 1 or 2 coworker that is understanding to an extent, but for the most part, they're just like, why are you still sick? What do you mean you need sick leave again? Over the last 5 years, I've had to have 2 to 3 weeks worth of sick leave at chunks at a time, because unfortunately I've had to have annual corrective surgeries. They've gone in, fix a section, allow me to heal, go back in, fix another part, another problem has popped up, and has happened 5 times now. So it's almost to the extent where they're like, so you're not going to ever get better. So is this something where we need to renew your contract? Is this something that we need to look into? So there isn't a lot of understanding where that is concerned. And unfortunately, I don't know if it applies to any other island, but there's no disability benefits. Even if I was to qualify for disability, where would that apply? How would that help me? So it's almost like you have to work in order to maintain your medication and treatment regimen. But at the same time, your workplace is demanding things of you that you physically cannot. But yet you don't look ill, and you have a brain that is still very much wanting to do everything, willing, but you're not necessarily physically able. Again, before my endo got really to the point where it was affecting me on a daily basis, I was going to school full time. I had 3 or 4 jobs. I was volunteering in 3 clubs actively. I was one of those workaholics that calculated my value based on how much I could get done in a day. And so I've had to reshape all of those things and say, listen, friends and family, you need to just be people that live in my phone, because I don't necessarily have the energy to go to every birthday party and to go to every link up and to all of that. So it's definitely affected relationships, friendships, family relationships, and even the idea of establishing intimacy, because we haven't mentioned it before, but with endo, it comes with painful sex, low libido. A lot of the treatments that we're on, we have no desire for any of those things, and so to even be in a relationship or get to the point where you can be in a relationship is like, there's a lot of compromise on both ends, I suppose. And I've been chronically single, I will say. So I don't know how to speak to what's it like in an intimate relationship. But because of my endo, it has ended dating situations before, not just because of the daily pains, but even just the long-term desires of wanting children, and that idea of having that flexible income so you could travel the world. That may not be something that I can do regularly, and so it's definitely compromised a lot of things, but it is my reality, and it's something that I happily vocalize from the onset. I'm not trying to trick anybody, and I have to be very real with what I can manage as well, so it's just one of those things where thankfully, I have a great personality and I'm hilarious most of the time. And so despite being in pain and all of that, I win them over with my charm. So they do tend to enjoy being in my phone. And on the one-off occasions that we get to meet face to face, it's a wonderful time, but they know I need to nap before and after. And there are many friends and family that happily just come and nap with me. They're like, you know, long I want to slow down too. And so they're like, hand me a pillow, hand me a blanket, let's nap together. So we have nap meetups oftentimes as well, which is just as refreshing and wonderful. So you make it work. Yeah, it does have its drawbacks, but and it's not the it's Instagrammable moments, but it's worth it for sure.
I love that. The nap meetups. Kimet and I do the same thing, but we've never given it a name. We would have our weekends and we'd have these grand plans about, you know, we're going to go here and we're going to go there and we're going to the beach and we're going to, and we've not stepped one foot outside this house. I remember one time we had a weekend in Beckway. We're gonna do all these grand things. We're going to the beach. We didn't leave the villa. We stayed in bed and just talked because she's not well, I'm not well. And I completely understand you, Zoe, about having to be real with others about the close people in your circle about where you are when it comes to relationships, being honest upfront. And you have to decide as the person who's trying to get to know me. Is this something I can deal with? Because I am laying it all on the table. Nobody is going to accuse me of tricking anybody. This is what I am living with. This is how it affects me. If you can't deal with it, please just go. Don't waste your time. Because that takes energy too. And when you talked about, you know, somebody who has the desire to have children, as somebody who has had to have a hysterectomy due to adeno, it's a hard conversation to have because at my age, a lot of the men that I meet want to have kids, and I can't do that for you. And no matter how much you're like, oh, well, we could adopt and we could, I'm always like, no, you started the conversation by saying you want to have your own kids. And so me telling you that I'm not able to, and then you switching, I don't want anybody to accuse me later on of taking a dream away from them. Because I've seen so many other women that this has happened to. And I already struggle getting through the day. I can't add any more stress to my day. So I have friends who tell me like I'm not giving people chances. Maybe they'll change their mind. Maybe they'll be okay with not having kids. Maybe I don't live in a world of maybes. I'm living in what's happening right now. I can't have babies. You want babies. And before we have a situation in about 5 years, let's just end this right now. So it's not about not wanting to give people chances. It's about I want to preserve the little energy I have and my sanity. And I don't want to take anybody's dream away from them. You can find that with somebody else. It may not be me. It will not be me. I just cannot do that for you. And so these are hard conversations to have. And so at this point, I am enjoying the single life because it takes a lot out of you emotionally and mentally, physically to date. And I have a lot of other things going on, so I rather channel the limited energy I have into that. Yeah. So what you said resonated with me, Zoe. Shantana?
Well, let's just say I was listening to you when you said you didn't want to, when people ask you how you're doing, and it's kind of repetitive to say, this is how I feel, this is what I'm going through. I used to always say, I'm fine, or I'm doing okay, even when I wasn't. Presently, I am very intentional on how I respect and honor myself. And if I'm dealing with something at the moment, you're going to know. Sometimes I'll have to process it, go through it first. This is always, and let me say this because I know there's people watching and this isn't their journey, that we're all in different spaces in our journey. It took me a long while to get here, to be more accepting of my new normal. And so my relationships changed drastically. I've lost friends, some that I thought were friends, and then they came back and apologized because they had no idea of the extent of what I was going through. And I wasn't honest with myself at the time, and I definitely wasn't honest with them about the things that I was going through. And I remember I had my very first luncheon, and I had some of my childhood sister girls, I had them to read a part of my story. And as they were reading it, I had props. I had Ziploc bags full of my medications and my medical records. I had charts and boxes. And as they were speaking parts of the story, they were taking parts of the props, which was really my actual things. And it was not a dry eye in my very first luncheon. And it was because a lot of family, friends surrounding myself at the time, they felt bad. They felt bad because of how I was judged, how I was looked at, things that was said about me when I was going through my journey. So I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I felt even though I still had support from other people, my mom has always been there 100%, even when she didn't understand it. But there was people that I actually loved that looked at me different. And so I showed up in spaces different because I still wanted to be whatever the picture of the image that you had of me, I showed up that way. Currently, I no longer do that. This is who Shantana is. This is what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. And if you're asking something of me and I don't have the capacity for it or to do anything, or I don't have the capacity to even have a discussion, I'll say I don't have the capacity for that today. And I'm okay with that. And that has taken me to go through extensive therapy for that. Um, just sitting in myself and doing that self-care. Like if you follow me and you know anything about Shantana, not Sister Girl, but Shantana, you will have an understanding of how much I take care of myself, how much I pour back into myself. And I do that and I add a little sprinkle of extraness to it because that's my own word, extraness. And and I have to do that because of what my body goes through on a daily basis. And so sometimes people may not understand, and it's okay if they don't. It's not for them to understand. You can respect it, but you don't have to have a true understanding of it. I can tell you what I'm going through, and it looks different. Today, it looks different. I've lost a beautiful job that I absolutely loved. I lost because I couldn't go to work. I couldn't get up. I couldn't function. And when I was on medication, I still couldn't function. So I couldn't function from pain. I couldn't function from medication. And so I was calling out a lot. And today it looks different. I had to take my life into my own hands. So now I'm an advocate, 100%. That is what I do for a living. And I had to do that because working for someone else did not work for me. I had to do something where I can create my own schedule, my own timing. And sometimes I still push and I have patients, but I call them my sister girls. And I will still show up for you, but I'll also let you know when I'm not in a good space too. And when I need to take a moment to rest for me, because it hasn't always been a pretty space. It hasn't always been where Shantana was taking care of Shantana. Shantana was looking to be everything to everyone else, but not enough to herself. And so now I'm very intentional where I go, who I go with, and people around me are more loving. And I'll still get those same people. Oh, are you better now? And with love and sometimes with a little sass, I was like, are you still ignorant? And I know that sounds harsh, but when you're saying that to me, it feels harsh because you were around for my journey. The latter part of it, you were around for that. And those are some of the same people who will still say, oh, you have to be better. You had surgery. And it makes me distance myself from those kind of conversations, from those people, because I don't want to engage in any of that because that's negative for me. If I educate you on what's happening with me and it's a continuous basis of you're asking the same questions, you're not asking from a space of wanting to learn or have understanding. It's just now I'm not important to you, and that's okay. And so you're not a part of that tribe that I call support. And so I move accordingly. And I remove myself from spaces like that because those spaces that I used to be in, they didn't feel good for me. And so I am a lot better now at how I show up for myself. So when I share this side of me, and I also share a little bit of what my journey looked like, I do that in hopes of people who are still in a different space that they can get here and just know that it didn't happen overnight. And so we're not beating ourselves up about what it looked like, or, well, I'm not there and I'm in this space and it's okay. My journey is not going to look like yours. But at some point, you will get to this space if we surround ourselves around people who are positive, even when we just want to have a moment to just be stuck in our stuff. That's okay too. I allow myself grace to have those moments. I'll stay stuck in it for a second, but I'm not going to stay too long.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Relationships. Okay, so I'll start off first in terms of having a partner. So many years ago, when I was with, we'll call him Voldemort, when I was with Voldemort, what did he met knows who. I just felt like in terms of intimacy, I always felt like I was not good enough in the sense that it was painful. It was painful every single time. And this is someone I explained my condition from the beginning. But I was always told, oh, you're always in pain. Oh, da 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 da. So that kind of made me go into a shell. Following that individual, the few people I've dated after, I kind of was hesitant. How soon should I let them know I have endometriosis? Are they going to, I don't know, lose interest, especially the fertility factor? And similar to Odelia, I always feel like, okay, if I get a good partner, I can't have kids, I will feel guilty. I will feel like, okay, I may be ruining this person's future. I'm taking away their ability to become a father. So how am I going to deal with that? How soon should you let your partner know you have the condition? The other aspect is, okay, you get the partner. Given my situation, there's a high possibility I will need IVF. So you have to think of finances. This is going to pose a financial strain on the relationship because it's not only my money, it's your money. We're doing this together. Is a person willing to go through all of that with me when there are other amazing women out there? So this is something I have been thinking about. I'm currently single. So the next person that comes around, I have to be very careful in terms of how I'm introducing the condition. Because a lot of men, you get some, yes, they're supportive, but like Odelia said, they can change their mind. They'll tell you, oh, it's not a problem, we can adopt. And maybe 3-4 years in, they end up having a child with someone else. I know people back home, this has been a situation. In terms of friendships, I would say I have a pretty good circle. However, it's the few isolated comments. So for example, I had one of my friends say, girl, if it was me, I would just take out everything, knowing that I want to have kids. Like, why would you make that comment? And then last year, I had a situation at work, and honestly, it bothers me till this day. So I'm very open about my endo. In fact, if you go in the lunchroom, you will see some posters on the notice board about endo PCOS. So everybody know I have endo. And through sharing that, I actually came into contact with a lot of individuals at work. In fact, 4 of them have endo and about 10 with PCOS. So anyway, there was a situation where one of my coworkers, she brought her daughter in the office. She's like 2 years old. So I'm like, oh, she's so cute. And then this other coworker says to me, oh, don't worry, I'll give you a fallopian tube. So I'm like, you will give me a fallopian tube? So my other coworker is watching her like, huh? She's like, oh, I know you're missing some body parts down there, so don't worry about it. I'll give you my fallopian tube. So, like when you have those moments, it's like, do I go off on this person or I just keep my mouth shut? I chose to keep my mouth shut. But I was just taken aback. I was like, that is so insensitive. Why would you make a joke out of that? Where is this coming in? And so from that experience, I told myself, Robin, you have to be careful who you share your story with. Because some people will use it to be shady or be malicious for no reason. So from that experience, I've been like, okay, certain people I'm not going to let into my circle. And in terms of relationships, again, this is something I've been struggling with, my relationship with God. Because when I was younger, following my diagnosis, I was like, I don't understand. Did I do something bad? I'm trying to recall events back in my childhood. Like, did I do something? Is this like some bad karma? I'm trying to understand, like, why me? Why did I get this disease? And, when am I going to get some relief? And I had to tell myself, I'm not the only one. All of us are going through it. So it has been tough, my relationship with God and just trying to keep the faith. And also, I saw some comments, basically, not to be too superstitious, but persons are saying like, oh, if you have endometriosis, it's like a generational curse. So I'm like, I don't know if y'all ever saw stuff like that online. So I'm like, oh my God, who in my family, which great-grandmother, great-grandfather did something, and now I'm paying for it. But I'm like, what about my cousins? They don't have it. So I was chosen, and then you start reading up on these things and then it becomes overwhelming. It really becomes overwhelming. It takes a toll on your mental health. I mean, I have had these personally where I would just cry in my room. I don't cry in public. You won't see me crying. But when I'm by myself, I'm just crying. And it's not crying because I'm in pain. It's just trying to accept fully that I have the condition and I have to deal with it. But it's a lot, and especially because none of my friends have it. None. I have friends with fibroids, friends with PCOS, but not endometriosis. So it's so difficult to connect with them. And I don't blame them because it's a who knows it feels it situation, okay? They're not going to be able to relate, but I just wish they would be more sensitive. And what I find recently, their way of showing support is just sending me a whole bunch of articles on endometriosis. And I'm like, why are you sending me this? I already know this information. What you need to do is share it on your personal pages to help raise awareness, not send it to me. You sending it to me, I already know. But I guess that's their way of, showing that they care or they're thinking of me. Yeah.
Thank you, Ravi. Everything you said resonated with me. Nika?
Okay. Relationship. For me, it's kind of tricky. Yes, Malik? Daddy went inside. Yes. No, Norma is not here. So as you can see, I have a child. I'm married. But that in itself, the conversation with Endo can be so tricky. Because even when you share the awareness, I'll start from that point. When you share the awareness, you have to be so conscious that it's not just you. And a lot of the private information that I would share would also impact my partner. And so there's always the mindfulness of that. And even before we were we had a child, it's just all those issues sometimes, or the whispering that sometimes people wouldn't say, questioning your fertility or your partner's ability to, and it's just those insensitive comments sometimes that I'm just like, what is wrong with people? And just some things you just like, you don't say that. So, certain questions you don't ask. Especially if you're on somebody not on that level. So it's just all those insensitivities that you have to deal with always ever so often, and most times than not it's always the woman's fault, and it's always something that you did or couldn't do, even though people in themselves know that's not the truth. So it's just having to deal with that is very crazy. Most of my really close friends, like who I'm closest to, they understand and or have it, so we are sounding boards for each other, like comfort level for each other, but also understanding that there's still so much that we don't get, even though we get it. And that's a challenge with endometriosis, as I would have alluded to before. It's so similar, but it's so different, because like even all of us sharing tonight, and you listen to some person's story, you'll be like, oh my God. And it's like you going through it, and in a way go through it for think that somebody can amplify what you've gone through, or have gone through so many more surgeries than you, or have to go through that. You're just like, this is crazy. It's just mind blowing to think that somebody could possibly have it worse than you, because in your current situation, it does not get worse than this. And it has been a very humbling experience, and how I view people and treat people changes significantly, and has changed significantly with endometriosis. I have to leave a lot more room for understanding for persons, because I realize a lot of them, they're insensitive, but I don't think they mean to be insensitive. It's coming from a place of ignorance. And I try to use moments as teaching tools, but it gets tiring sometimes, because I mean, people are adults and they should be a little bit more accountable, especially when they know your journey. Early in the awareness phase for me, there was a lot of disheartening comments. Like, I don't get too bothered with what people say, but there were a lot of disheartening comments, especially when it comes to fundraising and stuff. So I had to tell women who I do help that I'm not the type of person to help you, Odile, and then take a picture and be like, yeah, yeah, I help Odile, or yeah, I help Zoe, or whatever. But when persons contribute to funds to assist persons, they want to know that, these persons get assisted. So a lot of times for me, it impacts things in terms of, you would prefer to give people the privacy of certain things. But when you raise funds for them, and I said that to say that it can affect relationships and the way you do stuff, and I've had to go and share more personal things than sometimes I at the time would probably prefer to share, because sometimes it's almost like people don't believe. It's almost like you're constantly in a state of guilt, especially as it relates to work. So you always want to like overwork or overcompensate, which don't really help you, because you end up being burnt out, or them still end up not believe anyway or anything. So it's just having to deal with a lot of those issues and come to grips with it, and just come to a place where the level of concern about what people think or say don't affect you the same anymore. And understanding the responsibility that you have to those persons that are going through the struggle, and not just with endometriosis, but any female reproductive issues, and how to help those who don't understand, especially our male counterparts, be it our brothers or husbands, and understanding how challenging it is so there are challenges in relationship, and there are challenges out of relationship, because I also see a lot of issues where men go outside and constantly cheat, and women tend to be a lot more forgiving, because you feel like there's something wrong with you or broken with you, so you make room for a lot of that because you're broken or because you can't have a child. And that is why I identify with you not wanting to put yourself through that ordeal. You learn from other person's challenges and say that, man, so much of these men, they say they understand, but they go out and they do this and then they just be like, oh, but you can't have a child. But you knew that from before, or you can't do this or you can't do that. But I think also in terms of the advocacy and this, we have to talk up and explain to them. Sometimes we're not telling them when sex is painful. Sometimes we're not telling them the challenges that we are facing, and we expect them to know and tap into our feelings, and they can't know unless we tell them. Same thing with our doctor. Sometimes, you know, like what Zoe do, she jots down everything and she shared that information with them. So things they may overlook or they may not know, we give them the information. Because a part of being an advocate for ourselves is having the difficult and uncomfortable conversations. It changes a lot of your relationship, and a lot of people just by reality them can't deal with it. So them fade out anyway. And the persons that are there that are supportive, they're there. And then we too know the next challenge with us is like we always don't want to put too much pressure on people. So we always downplay what we're going through for the most part. And unless people truly connected to you, they're not really able to tap into your needs. So endometriosis and relationships on a whole, it changes it in a lot of way for all of us. And we have to work on being more intentional, particularly about ourselves and saying what our needs and requirements are, because they're different for each of us, and to understand when persons can't provide those things for us sometimes, because we do require a lot, and that's why we don't even say it in the first place. We just struggle silently with already a silent disease. Huh?
Sorry, but the Facebook Live popped up because I'm monitoring it as we talk.
Okay, so yeah, that pretty much encapsulate that. But in the be and all end all of it, one of my closest friends, besties, have endometriosis, so we pretty much do that. My husband is very understanding, because he's lived this journey with me and take care of me. He has had to take care of me like a baby on a lot of occasions, and I'm very grateful for that more than anything else, because it requires a lot of understanding and care. Like probably way more than I give him credit for. And too, that may have its own challenges on him, because it's a lot. It is kind of a lot. But we don't always have a lot of men and supporters who understand that and can take care of us the way we need. And we also kind of just like let them get to it a lot of things too, because them care for us so good on those moments, you know. But it's a give and take, it's a compromise, and it's an understanding. And we tend to be a lot more soft-hearted to the persons that get us, because it's a lot, or we feel it's a lot, because of it's all encompassing and overwhelming at times. So it just always feels much. And so we are extra grateful to those persons who are able to stick it out with us and to understand and to give us the support in the way we need to be supported. And then we try to just channel back that into supporting others the way they require the support from. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Nika. We are winding down, everybody. Our next question was about the impact of endometriosis on your mental health, but I think a lot of that came out in that last round of questions: the grief, the worry, the sadness, the anger sometimes, the trauma of having to have experienced a lot of this, and Shantana raised a medical trauma. The doctors who don't listen, who don't understand, who ignore you, the doctors who are not specialists, but treat you anyway, causing further damage that then has to be fixed by another doctor. And then it's just a lot that affects your mental health when it comes to endometriosis. So second to last question, I will take one tip from each of you. How can family members and friends support someone living with endometriosis? So for those who are listening, they may not live with endometriosis themselves, but they have a family member or a friend. What's one thing you would say that they can do to help support somebody living with endometriosis?
I think one of the major things is knowing how to provide comfort, learning what is comforting for that individual. So, for example, me, it's a good blanket or a nice fluffy robe. So my family knows that when I'm coming home from the hospital, there needs to be a new robe on my bed. So, or a new fuzzy blanket that's in my favorite color. So I think that's one of the things that's important so that you can feel seen and so you don't feel like a burden. So being able to know how to support that individual in a way that they can receive love. Because I know that many of us struggle with the idea that we're a burden or we're bothersome or, we're always taking a toll on the people that we love. So learning to speak in our love language is very important, I think.
Yeah, I'm nodding again. Shantana?
I was going to say something about the love language, Zoe. And I was going to say something about it because my love language is different from my relationships. And I always tell people listen, not with the intent to respond, but just listen for understanding. Because if you listen to the person who is going through it, you'll have a better understanding of who they are, what they're going through. And my friendships, I want to have an understanding whether my friends have an illness or not. I want to have an understanding of who they are, how they receive love. Their love language is different than mine. And so having an illness, I have favorite blankets and I have robes too, and those are my favorite. I have favorite snacks that I like. I know when I just want someone to just come and sit with me, and that all goes to how you listen effectively, not just listen at the doctor's office, but hear me when I talk. Because sometimes I just want you to just come and just sit and just be with me. There's no words that need to be spoken. And so when you're dealing with someone that has endometriosis or any other chronic illness, it's just being present in that moment. I may need you to gear up and come with me because I'm going to be an advocate like no other at a doctor's appointment or a rally or at an event. And I want you to just come and just be my sister girl and stomp the pavement with me. Or I just want you just to come and just be, or just go to dinner. I have sister girls where we just go out to eat. We have fun. We talk about everything outside of my illness because I'm still a human being, right? The person that you're supporting, they're still a human being. So don't treat them as a delicate flower because then we're going to look like or feel that we're a burden if we talk and say certain things or that we're complaining, but just give us that space to do that and give us grace while we're doing that. That would be just a couple of my tips, but I will share that I put those in two of the books that you named that I have. There's information on how to show up and be there for your loved ones who are going through it and just how to be present.
Thank you, Shantana. Can you put the links for your books in the comments, both
Yes,
here
I
and
was
on
just about to
Facebook?
ask.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll do
both
that.
here and on Facebook so that we can get to them
Awesome,
easily.
I'll do that. Because there's
Okay, great.
ebooks too. So you can also, ebooks would be easier for some of my people in the Caribbean. You can go
Yeah,
online instead of just because the mail is expensive. I
yeah,
sent some to Barbados and I was like, it costs more to send and to print that book itself.
yeah.
But I'll send the links though. Nonetheless, I'll
Okay,
send them inside the
great.
chat.
All right, thank you. Robin?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm definitely going to get that book, Shantana. For me, it's just simply being an advocate. That's the best way you can support me. As I mentioned before, like persons will send me articles on Endo, or, any news items. And for me, okay, you're sending it to me. I already know about it. So what I need you to do is to share it with others, because that's all the part of, raising awareness, especially in St. Lucia. A lot of St. Lucians, they're not aware of endometriosis at all. It's very foreign to them. So I encourage persons like it's endo awareness, go ahead, share the information, share the content, because we really need to change things in St. Lucia. So yes, being an advocate, you don't have to have endo. You don't have to have any reproductive illness, but you can help. You can make a change.
Yes, thank you. Nico?
Not necessarily from, sorry, not necessarily for me, but for anybody dealing with endo tip, you could help with money or just learning about endometriosis. And money doesn't necessarily mean physically giving them the cash if you're not in a position, but just if you know like somebody who has it, especially if they're not in a financial position, if you could help out with medication or whatever, because it's so expensive. And my journey to starting FAM started with me having to, after doing treatment for 6 months at 600 and odd US a pop for medication, the injection, like imagine that for a month, like for 6 months US every month. And that's not even the surgery cost, that's just to get the injections. And then now having to go pay thousands of US dollars, over 12,000 US dollars for surgery, which do include traveling, accommodation, and all of that. And so, that's what I said I committed myself. I'm like, Lord, once I go through this, I'm going to try and see if I could raise funds to help other women, because the average person just cannot afford it. The average person can afford 600 US a month. I don't barely know how I made that. Thank God I was able to do it. But I said to myself, the average person can't afford this. And so when we have women who stand up and try to stand in the gap for other persons and raise funds to help them or whatever, if you can contribute, you contribute. Every nickel make a muckle. So it's important, especially in the work that we're doing here, if we can find a way to support women in a meaningful way, because it takes cash to care, but it's not just the cash, it's just sharing the information. We already have endometriosis. We already know what it is. What we can give you is just a snapshot of our life. We can't even give it a whole, because this forum would go on forever. But it's just for you to understand, so you can find ways to support us in meaningful ways. And that's by cash or kind, if it is that, because we give donation. Well, for endometriosis, we go into the school for children with special needs. We go into our mental health homes and we try to give them care packages with pads and stuff, because as we talk about the mental health component, women with mental health challenges, some of them have endometriosis. Women with disabilities, some of them have endometriosis. So a lot of time when we have this conversation, we don't even think about those women with those other challenges, right? And so we want it to be inclusive of all women who are going through the struggle with this and female reproductive issues. So if you can contribute with a cash kind, if you can volunteer to help out with some of this medication or stuff, that would be very helpful. An important thing for us, anybody with endometriosis, is to educate yourself. Once you're educating yourself, how you respond to us, how you treat us, how you treat anybody with endometriosis will be significantly different, because you won't be coming from a place of ignorance. You won't be asking nonsense. You won't be insensitive, because you're taking the time. And when you do ask the questions, even the ones that you're not clear about, it does not come across as ignorant, but it just come across as in you're really genuinely trying to better understand and educate yourself. And we appreciate that. So I'm really encouraging persons to please educate yourself about it and share that information with other persons, because if one person spread that, then we get the message out there, more persons get to understand what endometriosis is, how it affects us, and that it affects everybody. The short name for FAM also is families coming together for a cause, because endometriosis affects the whole family, from the support that you have to give to the person living with it, to your partner, your support system, right across the board. So that is what I want to encourage persons to do. Please educate yourself. And if you can assist financially, and otherwise, if not financially, if you can donate pads, care packages, to assist, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Nika. All good practical things that persons can do to support women living with endo. And our last and final question. What is one encouragement or piece of advice that you would give to somebody who has been newly diagnosed with endometriosis? What is one encouragement or piece of advice you would give to somebody newly diagnosed with endometriosis?
One of the things is to lean into all of your emotions, allow yourself to feel everything. I think a lot of us hold back, contain, compartmentalize, try to keep it moving, and don't actually hold space for all of the emotions that being diagnosed comes with. So allow yourself to grieve life before this diagnosis. Allow yourself to grieve the idea of what life would look like if you did not have this burden, you know? So I would say allow yourself the room and the grace to feel all your feels, lean into them, spend time in each one of them, go through the motions, be angry, bargain with the Lord, do all the things that you need to do to go through it, because the more you hold back, the more you try to contain it. We say in Jamaica, pressure bust pipe. It's not a healthy way. So you have to lean into it, feel all the feels, and allow yourself the grace to go through it.
I would say the first thing that I have the power, because I have such a huge voice, and I was told that since I was a kid that my voice carries, is what my aunt used to say, meaning I was loud. I'm always loud, and I guess my voice does carry. But I would like to say that your voice is powerful. Don't be afraid to use your voice to speak up for yourself. Ask as many questions as you want. Even if we think it's the craziest question or it's the silliest question, it may feel like that to us or to them, but it's not. Ask the question anyway. But just know that there's nothing that's in your head. There is power in what you feel. Like no one knows your body the way that you know it. And I always say there's a partnership between our providers and ourselves. Nothing can happen without you. So you have to go in and tell your provider what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. If that provider does not listen, use that same power in your voice to go to another doctor. A lot of us suffered in silence going to the same doctor and not being heard, not being seen, but not under. And for me, I felt like that was not understanding the power that I had in my voice and also understanding the power of my body. And so those are two things that no one can take away from you, is the power to know what's happening to your body and know that it's something and it's not in your head, and use your voice to advocate for yourself. Even if it's spaces where you don't feel strong enough, bring someone with you that you do know that is strong enough to do that and can speak for you. Know that you don't have to go by yourself. Take someone with you to go through that journey, the journey with you, and don't suffer in silence. I feel like we are no longer doing that. We have so many sister girls all across the world, international, different islands and states and countries, and all of those things. Find your tribe. We're somewhere. Somebody fits in that sister girl space. Even if you don't think that you do, you do. And the doors are always open. This sister circle right here, if you're on, you're listening, you're watching, we are opening up our doors for you to come in and join this sister circle. It is not just specifically for if you look a certain way, if your pain is a certain way. It is for anyone who is struggling and their families to come and join our circle and find your tribe.
Yes, I agree 100% with Shantana. I think with this condition, you need to be proactive. If you want to improve the quality of your life, you need to be proactive. And if it means that you need to change your doctor, by all means do so. I know many St. Lucians back home, they keep going to the same doctor, getting the same treatment, and they're not getting any relief. And, you know, sometimes they've shared with me that they feel intimidated by the doctors because I'm like, why didn't you ask certain questions? They did not feel comfortable with the doctor. And you have to keep in mind, you're paying your money. If you're not getting answers, you need to seek advice elsewhere. So you have to be proactive. You also have to keep in mind, you cannot compare yourself to someone else. So if, for example, Zoe is using a certain treatment, yes, she's getting relief. I hop on the treatment. It's not working for me, but because it's working for Zoe, I'm like, okay, it's working for Zoe, then it must work for me. No, everyone's body is different. And that comes with experimenting with different forms of treatment. So again, be proactive, document everything from the onset, document everything. Try to create your own protocol that works for you.
Yes, Nika.
All right, for me, two important things for persons newly diagnosed with endometriosis. First one, self-care, 100%. Your self-care game has to be up like 7. Like, we spend so much time in pain. We spend so much time doctor's visits, going through the mentals. You have to take care of yourself. So every opportunity you have to do a spa treatment, to treat yourself to something nice, to make sure that you're feeling well and healthy. If you have a good day, to go get a walk, to exercise, whatever it is that you do for fun and to take care of you, to treat you and make sure you are feeling good and beautiful and whole and enough and worthy, you need to do that. So you're going to have days, a lot of days when you're not feeling any of those things, but you have to constantly put yourself in a position to feel and not feel as though you're defined by endometriosis or that it encapsulates all of who you are. You still have to fight back and you still have to take care of your endo warrior, but you're not defined by it. That's part of transforming that pain and turning it into purpose. And it has to be a healthy purpose. And that is self-care. Your self-care game have to be up 100%. And the next thing is to live while you're alive. Some of us go through the motion, and when you live with a chronic illness, it can consume you, it can take you over. You have to enjoy those moments, enjoy those days by the ocean, find healthy coping mechanism. If dancing is what is it for you, if food is what is it for you, if exercise is what it is for you, if just going out with friends and just are traveling it is for you, pack up your medication, make sure you have all the things to make you comfortable and go do it. So too much of us end up living lives like hermits, or we get recluse or more introverted. We're like turtles in a shell. We're pulling and we don't come outside and smell the environment and take in the rain, and we don't get to dance to the sound of the music and to just experience life and just live. And so we just exist. And I just want to tell you that makes it so much worse. So give yourself some purpose. It's painful. We push through the pain for people work anyway. We push through the pain for pay the bills and for do the things that don't serve us and it will pop down. So push through the pain to enjoy life and live while you're alive. And just get some healthy stuff. We're going healthy. So you can show me up for the healthy products. So going healthy and herbal, some mushrooms and stuff, lion mane. These are actually good for persons with cancer and other stuff, cordyceps, reishi, and stuff. So, that's part of the journey too. As we go, we grow, and we try to give each other options that can and may work for them. And we share these things with it because sometimes if we had known these things earlier in our journey, we probably would have been in a different space. Some of us wouldn't have to do corrective surgeries, or we wouldn't have to be going through some of the challenges that we're now facing, because the thing is also with anything at all, early detection changes your chances. Some persons would have lost body parts that they didn't need to lose because of when they find it out or who they went to give them support in terms of treatment and doctor. So if we can collectively share our stories with you and say, try this or go that route, or this is the advice, take it, and make with it what you can, because and do it as early as possible, because a lot of things, if we knew 5 years, 10 years earlier, our chances would have been significantly different now. And don't be afraid to change and get a second opinion. Some of these doctors are lazy. Some of them don't really care about you. Them just want to work for what works for them. So if taking out everything works for them, they just tell you to do that. They don't look at your age. They don't consider the things that are going to affect you as a woman. They don't consider the impact of menopause on you at an early stage. You don't consider how that will affect your partner or your ability to be with somebody. They don't think about how it affects your mental health. They just think this is a problem. They just think about the sense. This is a problem. If I go in and take out everything, it's easier for me. One surgery, back, and it's done. And then we now have to live with the consequences. And then we now have to listen to other persons tell the story and say, why you never try this specialist, or why you never go? They still do that at this part of the world. And so we always have to keep ourselves informed so we can make informed decisions. So again, recapping, live while you're alive and turn up your self-care game 100%.
Thank you so much, ladies. Could not have done this without you. I mean, we went over the time we had said we would be here, but I think it was a very powerful conversation, and a conversation that needed to be had. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. So we're just going to take a few minutes just in case anybody has any questions who has been listening and they just want to say something or ask a question to any one of the panelists. So Liz, are there any questions in the Zoom chat?
Not at present. Kimet, are there any questions on Facebook?
So while we wait on Kimet, if anybody who has been listening wants to say something to any of the panelists or wants to ask a question, now is your chance. We have 3 minutes to do that. Okay,
No.
Kimet said there's none on Facebook. Okay. We have 3 minutes to do that. Oh. So I guess nobody has any questions. I don't see any hands raised or anything.
Nika says to link her for natural products and Levine products.
Okay, good.
There was some comments on Facebook. I was looking at the ladies commenting on Facebook.
Okay.
I would just like to ask Zoe and Nika if they're familiar with Dr. Halsall. I follow him on Instagram. He's based in Jamaica.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. I follow him on Instagram as well. He is pretty new in the game relatively,
Okay.
but he does specialize in it. I tend to do my research in terms of doctors training, different from specializing. So I'm not too familiar, but as far as I know, he is up to date on some of the latest, like laparoscopic methods for excision. But in terms of his knowledge of treatment options, I couldn't speak to it, but I've known a couple persons that have had good results with him.
Okay, thanks.
From what I know about him, I know he's more mainly for fibroids. I know he does a lot with fibroids. He is definitely newer when it comes to endometriosis, and he's got some learning to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know why these platforms are so amazing? It's because we get to connect with one another, one, and then two, the question that Rovin just asked, it's very important because someone can be looking for a provider and not know what to look for in a provider. But having these discussions gives people a better idea of where to start, some of the things to just start doing or start looking for, but just make sure that they're not feeling like they're alone. And that even as advocates, we still have questions. We're still learning, like we don't know everything. but we will find the answer. Whatever we don't know, I don't care how long it takes us, we're gonna find the answer. But we're giving others hope in a space that we didn't have. I know
For
I did not have this type of space when I first started. When I did connect with some of the other outlets, I was like, well, where have you been? I didn't even know you existed. And so a lot of the people coming and getting newly diagnosed or just finding out that they may have anything that has a name to it, it's scary and it's lonely. But our platforms are giving people hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel or somewhere in the middle in the tunnel.
For sure, and that is so important because like Zoe and Odelia are always on supporting the things I do, and I support the things that they do. And now we're all going to be supporting each other because it's important for women to see that we can share spaces in a healthy way, and it's important for us to advocate for each other because we understand the unique challenges that we face. And even certain things, when I worked in the Ministry of Health, like we used to distribute condoms for free, but women have to pay so much for pads, and pads are so expensive. And then the duties, like certain things, duties shouldn't be on products like that. We don't have a choice in the matter. This is what we have to deal with every month, or the lot thereof. And so it's just small changes with that. And that is why when I try to ask people, when I talk about giving to support the causes, is just how do we provide sanitary napkins and that kind of period related product, and talk about period poverty for our young girls, because we're adults now, all having the conversation, and so we're in a better place to be able to even afford these basic stuff. But when I have to go into the schools and talk to the youngsters about period poverty and the shame and how they feel about their bodies, and being able to talk about something that affects them and that they have to deal with every month, is just so crazy that in this day and age that our young females have to feel that way and not able. And that's why I'm glad you gave talking about using the voice as an important tool. And it may just seem like a cliche thing to a person who is listening, but it's so important because we have a voice now when we're using it, but some of our young girls just don't feel like they can even speak up about the things that are affecting them. So half of them living through pain that you don't even know because they don't even talk about it. They don't feel like they can talk about it and stuff. And so the work for us is also a lot as well, because we have to go into the schools and we have to start addressing some of these challenges and save some of them, because some of the methods that some of these doctors are using are outdated. Some of the medication that they're giving them is not in a way that's going to help them at all. And they make decision that affects their bodies that they have to live with. And these doctors just go to their homes and they don't care, some of them. So these are important conversations. These are important platforms. It's important for us to continue to support each other in the way that is helpful, not just to us, but to those who are listening, and to continue to be able to point them in a direction where they can get help. One of the most crippling feeling for me, and I hate the way it feels when people come to me for help and I'm not able to like help them. And a lot of times what they want is financial help, but you're just not in the position. And that is really such a hard feeling for me, to know that these persons genuinely require this help, but you're just not in a position to support them. And then what you're gonna do? Oh, when people come to you, just be like, oh, I hope you feel better. Like that don't help. So it's just for us to be able to be in positions where we can help them in a more meaningful way, or point them in the direction where they can actually get help. And that is why it's so important to have our men as part of this conversation, because a lot of them are influential in companies that can provide things or can make policies that affect the way these things are impacted.
Thank
Just to
you.
quickly add, not to keep us on for too long, when Nika said not being able to help persons, this is something that really affects me emotionally, because I come across so many stories, and we had a situation where a young lady messaged us. We provided her with as much information possible. And later on, she came back and she's like, oh, I went to the doctor and they can't help me, and y'all cannot even help me. She was a bit rude, but I understood it was coming from a place of frustration. And I'm like, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't help you, but it bothers me. It bothers me that I'm not able to do more for others because, again, I now have to take care of myself. So it is definitely an emotional burden.
Miss?
Yeah, I was just gonna say on the note that Nika was saying about us, all of us being here and supporting each other, can we all put our IG handles in the chat and maybe go around real quick and have everyone give us their Instagram, start with Shantana and then move through to Zoe?
My Instagram is Sister Girl Foundation, all one word. You can find me anywhere under Sister Girl Foundation.
Okay.
I'm Afro Nerd 405. I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. Robin?
So you can find me at Ianola, IYANOLA _ womanhood, with a B. And my personal advocacy page is Endorovy, ENDOROVY. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Nika?
You hearing me?
Yeah, hearing you and
Yeah,
seeing you.
mine is jumplife.svg. And my personal page is Nika.Anderson, I think. I think so. On Instagram, yeah, it's Nika.day. There's a there's a there's a Endo page on Facebook which I need to really update. But on Instagram it's jumplife.svg and Nika.Anderson because I do most of the Endo stuff under the Jump Life page. Because yeah,
Okay.
I put it in the chat.
Put it in the chat, right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. If it's possible, if you could just copy the pages and put it in the Facebook chat as well. I don't know if you can do that. I'm trying to, right, so that once this live is ended, it will still be in the Facebook chat for persons to find you. Nika, put yours in the Zoom chat there for me, please, as well. Or if you could put it directly on into the Facebook chat, that would be great.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do that.
Or tell me which page to put here for you, because I could put it in if you're not.
For both of them.
So Jump Life.
And then my other regular page.
Is Jump Life SVG or just Jump Life?
Jumplife.svg.
Right, SVG. And Nika.
Yeah.
Is your whole name? It's Nika Anderson?
I think so.
You're not sure?
You go pop up, you go see a
Yes,
picture
it
of me.
is. It is your full name.
Nika Anderson Isaacs, okay. Thank you, Zoe.
Thanks, guys. I'm a little bit slow with those things, you know.
She sounds like me when I can't remember certain things because of my brain fog. Okay, so I think everything is in the chat now. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to our panelists, Zoe, Shantana, Ravin, and Nika. You really made tonight's session so good to the point where we are over our time. But I think it was a good conversation. I think it was a needed conversation. And I think a lot of persons it's going to resonate with them and maybe help a few persons along in their journey. I started this because these are the conversations I wish I had when I was first diagnosed. And I want to make sure that nobody else, as far as is possible within my power, that nobody else experiences that they feel alone, that they feel as if nobody understands them, and that they feel that there is no support. Support is available. You are not alone, and you don't have to walk this journey alone. There are a lot of us who are here on this journey with you. Oh, Shantana says we need a group photo virtually. I don't know how to do these things. So
Zoe may
who
know.
is the
So
How
okay. I'm
you know
always
how to do
making a
it,
suggestion
Shantana?
and I'm clueless.
Ask
I
Zoe.
know that when I'm on live like this
I
on
think as a
Zoom,
host, you can do a screenshot
screenshot, yes.
As a host. Okay, so I am
as
the
the
host.
host.
Now, where do I
Yes.
go?
I think you go into more, and I think there
Uh-huh.
should be an option for screenshot.
But everybody have to be up on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's that option. Like you put your screen on gallery for viewing, so you have all our boxes up, and then you should be able to do a
Okay.
Yeah, tell you Zoe would know.
Zoe, I am going to make you co-host so you can
No, I'm
help
not
us with.
sure. I'm not sure how. Let me see.
Disclaimer.
I done
You know,
started something.
I always see the option to do a shot. That's why I asked. That's
Okay,
why I
I've made
said,
you co-host, Zoe.
okay.